stirred up to make much sense. And then he has to sing that. Does anybody feel better?
Yes.
All right. Man. What was that saying you said? Oh, if you don't, what did you say? If it's not the gospel?
If it doesn't sound like good news, it's probably not the gospel.
Oh, if it doesn't sound like good news, it's probably not the gospel. Yeah. I had another one like that. It said if religious folks aren't throwing rocks at you, you're probably not preaching the gospel. Oh, that's bad. Oh gosh. Is everybody good? Man, I'm telling you, I got so much going on in me, I don't know what to... We'll see if we can't reel it in somewhere. All right. If we don't, I guess the music was good, huh? I just can't... I just can't get over the goodness of God. You know, it's about the time you think you've got some of it, then there's more of it, and the more you get, it's like the more you get, the more that you can see there is to get. You know, it's like the more I get, the more it's like I found a thimble full of the ocean. You know, it's like the more you see, the more you can see there is to see, that you still have yet to explore and to experience. And man, it's just the goodness of God. It's that He's good, and realizing He's good, and taking a hold of that and letting Him be good. You know, it's like, because Paul said, you guys have heard this. I'm preaching to the choir, but you're here, so. Paul said it's the goodness of God that leads man to repentance. You know, he said repentance doesn't mean run to the front and cry and tell God how sorry you are. It means to think differently, to change the way you think. So he's saying it's the goodness of God that's going to change the way you think. It's the goodness of God that's going to change the way you think. And if He can change the way you think, if He can rewire your thinker, He can rewire your whole life.
Amen.
I make up my own words. But you get me, right? If He can rewire your thinker, He can rewire your whole life. And how's He going to rewire your thinker? By exposing you to His goodness. This is why I can't stand religion. This is why I stand up in the face of it and catch whatever I have to catch, find whatever. But religion, this is what religion's done. Religion has got us caught up in this thing to where you have to qualify for the goodness by your own behavior and your own actions and your own performance. And as long as he can... I believe that the enemy, old Satan, Slewfoot himself, is the one that's promoting and backing religion. One of the definitions, I told Buster a while ago, one of the definitions of religion, dictionary definitions, one of the definitions is a return to bondage. But yet we think we need some more of that or something, you know. Religion has concocted this idea that if I can get my act together, or if I can learn to behave a certain way, or if I can follow a set of moral rules, and I can perform a little better, or act a little better, or work on myself and get myself to a certain place, then I'll somewhat be qualified for the goodness of God. And then, right? So then, see, it's in that place, you're always disqualified. In and of yourself, if it's up to your own behavior and your own actions and your own performance and your own personal record and all that, your law keeping, and you know, if it's up to that, you're always going to be disqualified. See, religion waters it down to the level that you can somehow pretend and act like you've got it together, or you know, fool everybody else like we're doing good or something. You know, it's like the Pharisees. You read the Pharisees in the Bible, and they went around all strutting their stuff and all this there because they're the ones that follow the law, and you Gentiles and you sinners and you tax collectors and you prostitutes and you no good people, you know. And Jesus shows up and He says, Matthew 5, he says, you say that if a man kills his neighbor, then he's committed murder and he's guilty of the law. But I say, if you've even been mad at him, you've already killed him in your heart. He said, you say that if you slept with your neighbor's wife, you committed adultery. But I say if you've even looked at her too long, you've already. What's he doing here? He's saying, look, you and your religion has brought this thing down to a level to where you can actually fool yourself into think you're doing something good. Let me get the thing back up. If you want to live under the standard, Jesus says, let's get the thing back up there where it really belongs, and everybody is disqualified. I heard it said, man, it's hard being Christian. I said, no, it ain't hard. It's impossible. It's impossible. You might as well give up on trying to be a Christian. Everybody's disqualified under the self-conscious system. And there's 10,000 different brands of what that looks like. Every denomination, every religion, every one, bread and cheese, right? Every single, that's an inside joke. It's like, it's everywhere. And it's all about what self can do. Fooey with self. That's what happened when Adam and Eve ate from the wrong tree. They now found themselves in self. Before that they were in God. Now they're in self. So we've lived this whole time in self. Jesus came, redeemed us from self, put us back in Him, and crucified self. No longer live in self. And religion is all about self. So in religion, you're always disqualified because it points you to yourself, and if you dig deep enough, I don't care how much your church attendance is, I don't care how much you've tithed, I don't care how many verses you've memorized and can quote, I don't care how many hours of the day you think you spend praying, or all this stuff that we've come up with, you dig deep enough, you'll find a place, the enemy will bring it up to you. If you can't find it, he'll help you find it.
That's right, Jason. That's right.
He can, or if he can't, ask your sister maybe. She could probably. If it's going to be about self, you dig deep enough, you'll find a place that you're disqualified. Because the Bible said if you're guilty of one, if you've missed it in one point, you're guilty of all. You don't really think about that? If you live, okay, say you were 90 years old, and you lived by the law perfectly your whole life. 90 years. You think about it. I've lived 90 years and I've upheld the law perfectly. I've not sinned one time. And then right before I die, I missed it in one point. Scratches every bit of it. I'm just saying, God knows that if He's going to change me and change my life, it's going to be because He has to come up with a system that's going to put me in this agreement to where I'm no longer qualified for His goodness based on what I do or don't do. Religion's all about what you do or don't do. And newsflash for you, you can't do and don't do perfectly. And the only way you're qualified for the goodness is if you do and don't do perfectly. He said, I found fault with that system. I'm going to have to come up with a new system. So Jesus shows up, lives His life to demonstrate what a Son of God with no sin can actually do and look like. And then He goes on and becomes the sacrifice and shed His blood for all of us, so that he took all of my sin and your sin upon His own body and then was crucified with it. And because of that, now all of our sin was no longer on our record, so we're now eligible for the Spirit of God to retain His place of ownership and live inside of me again and reinstated my position, and now the righteousness of God. See, now I'm under a new covenant. I'm not under the old covenant. The old covenant was if you do and you perform perfectly, then you're qualified. The new covenant, Jesus came and lived perfectly and performed perfectly and upheld the law in every way. And because He did, now I'm in Him. Now I'm qualified by His performance. Are you following? This is the system. This is what God had to come up with so that we would no longer be disqualified from His goodness. He had to qualify me for His goodness in order for there be hope for me to actually become something and experience change and grow up into who it is that He says He wants me to be. See how He's responsible for all of it? He said, it's my goodness that's going to change you. It's my goodness that's going to heal you. It's my goodness that's going to restore you. Now I've got to get your mindset out of this religious nonsense to where you keep on disqualifying yourself from my goodness. And if you keep on disqualifying yourself, you'll do without my goodness and therefore live your life unchanged. Oh, you go to church. Praise the Lord. You can sing all the songs. Go through your whole life unchanged. What a waste. Man, what a waste to go through all that effort, live your whole life and be a church member and just be religious and so much energy and effort to act like something you ain't got. You actually do got, but you don't know you got. Does that make sense? It did my head anyway. I lived my whole life thinking that I didn't have what I was supposed to have, so I pretended like I had it. But the whole time I didn't realize I actually did have it, and I didn't have to pretend the whole time anyway. I just had to know it. Everything that disqualified us from being eligible for the goodness of God has been put on someone else, and all of the stuff that qualified Him for the goodness of God has been placed on us. Congratulations. You're qualified to experience the goodness of God, and it's His good pleasure for you to experience it. He died for you to experience it. He was God and left heaven and became a man and let man beat Him mercifully and spit on Him and pluck His beard and hang Him on a cross naked and shame Him and go through all of that so we can experience His goodness. Now for me, this is just me. I don't know how to word this right, so I'm not going to worry about wording it right. I'm just going to say it. It's my prerogative. I feel like I owe Him. I don't owe Him, but I feel like I owe Him to allow that goodness that He paid for to flow and be. And He wants me to have it that bad. By golly, I'm just going to have it.
Yes.
Amen. I'm done trying to qualify for it. I'm done trying to look good enough in your eyes for it. He did all that He did so that I could have it. By golly, I'm going to take it. I'm going to say, you're going to show off in my life. You say it's your goodness that's going to bring about change in me, and you want change in me. I mean, we all need change. Nobody woke up this morning and said, well, it's Thursday. I'm going to go to Cowboy Church tonight. I can learn how to be a good hypocrite. I'm convinced nobody's here for that. Nobody's here to try to be a hypocrite. We're all here. I mean, it's nasty, rainy, cold. You're here because you want something. Or maybe you just don't have Facebook. I don't know. We want change. We need change. I don't want to live life like I used to live life. I'm telling you, I can live life like a son of God and live life with God and walk in power and have victory and see people set free and know what love is. And man, I'm telling you, this is good stuff. If what you got ain't... I'm telling you, this life with God is good stuff. I'm messed up. And I like it. I'm going to continue to be. I'm telling you, we all still need change. None of us are walking on water yet. And he's saying, if you're going to get more change, you're going to have to get over yourself. You're going to have to get out of this mindset and quit trying to qualify and be good enough and measure for my goodness and just let me be good because my heart wants to be. And I did everything it takes to get you to the place where I could be. So just quit fighting it, quit resisting it, and let me be good. I know we've heard this, but I'm telling you, there's a lot. We've been through a lot of life. And there's still a lot of stuff down in us that are subconsciously trying to resist the goodness of God and self-sabotage. And I'm telling you, it's what condemnation does. Religion promotes condemnation, and you could have condemnation down in you so deep that you don't even realize it's there, and you could sing Amazing Grace, and you could say, oh yeah, I'm the righteousness of God, and that thing's still sabotaging you. That thing's still, you ever wonder as you come here, you've been here a while, you believe in healing, you know it's the will of God to be healed, you can preach the grace message backwards and forwards, but for some reason there's still a reason you can't get totally free, you can't get totally healed. Come on. I'm not going to say it's the only reason, but I would say a big reason or part of the reason could be there's still some old stuff down there. Still some old condemnation because you can hate yourself down deep so much that you'll actually torture yourself, you'll sabotage yourself, you'll actually hang on to sickness and say, pray for me, brother. And then Jason prays for you and you don't get healed, and then you're like, oh, I've had Jason pray for me, Jason's prayed for me, and that pray, and the whole thing is condemnation, holding on to that thing, self-punishing your own self, and you're not even realizing it. I'm telling you, the gospel made a way for us to not even be self-conscious anymore. I can just be God-conscious. He's my dad. He loves me. I mean, He loves me. I'm talking about loves me like... I mean, He loves me. He'd make a fool of Himself over me, how much He loves me. Come on, it's God I'm talking about. You ever seen them parents that you think, man, if I was their kids, I'd be a little embarrassed. You know, I mean, how they act at the ball games and all that. I'm telling you, that's the way God acts over me. You flop, I don't know if He carries a wallet. If He did, you flop it open, my picture's right there. I'm telling you, you got to think this way. You got to believe this way, and you got to make it personal for yourself. I'm not saying you can't be on the front page either. You got to live there. You got to think that way. I'm the apple of His eye. I'm His boy. I mean, He left heaven. He did all that He did to come and get me, rescue me. I ain't never going to get over that. I'm done being self-conscious of, well, Jason did this and he failed at that, or when's he ever going to learn, and man did this again, or any... Why is it that we've let what we do trump what He did? Sounds like pride to me to think what we do is more powerful than what He did. What He did can't be undone by what you do. Sorry. You ain't that powerful. I'm just saying it's the goodness of God that changes us. It's the goodness of God that He's trying to get into our lives, to flow into our lives. If all we got to do is say, you know what, I give. I'm done trying to qualify for it. I'm done trying to wait till I'm good enough for it. I'm done trying to wait till at least my appearance and my image and the other people's opinions of who I am. Oh, I don't want God to be too good to me because I don't look like that to other people yet. better hold off a little, God. I got to get my image to look more like a Christian or more like a church person or what. Fooey with that. Just let His goodness flow in your life and let Him do whatever He wants to do with you. I mean, look, Miss Sherry. Lips touching both ears. Look, now the goodness of God jumped all over her last week. Now, here's what religion will say. Now, wait just a minute. You can't just tell people that they're qualified for the goodness of God. You can't just tell people that all their sin's gone and they don't have to be sin conscious and all this stuff. Then they'll just think they're free to go live however they want to, and they're just going to sin all the... You're preaching a license to sin. You're preaching greasy grace and all this stuff. Right? I think that's the context that Paul actually said. Do you take it lightly? Are you taking lightly the goodness of God and His kindness? Do you not know that it's actually His goodness and kindness? This is the context of Romans 2:4. Do you not know that it's actually His goodness and kindness that's going to bring about the change that you're trying to produce on your own? I'll just take a survey. Miss Sherry, you experienced the goodness of God last week. It's been life-changing, hasn't it? Did that cause you to want to go sin more? That's what they say. They say you can't just let people be qualified for the goodness of God, because then they'll just go live however they want, and they'll just sin and be... I'm so really, seriously, this week, since you experienced the goodness, did that like revive sin in you and make you more of a sinner and make you want to go sin all you want because why not? Or was it actually the opposite of that? Because of the goodness and the love of God that you experienced, you actually fell in love with God even more this week than you did, not saying you didn't love Him before, but I mean it's magnified now. Is that fair enough? Exactly. You see why religion wants to keep you qualifying for it, keep you resisting it, and keep the hose kinked so you don't really experience it? Oh, I'm preaching to the choir. Is everybody good? I'm just saying I want some more, don't you? I'm pretty convinced I haven't exhausted it. I'm pretty convinced He's got more for me. And it's His heart to raise me up into who it is that He purposed me to be. I was a dream of His, and so He had a spot for me. He had a purpose for me. He had a dream for me. He had a purpose for me. He had a purpose for you. And for some reason, in 1977, that's the year I was born, in 1977, He said, it's time. Time for my boy to show up. I got something for him. I got something for him to do. So He didn't put me here so that I could be a miserable, saved sinner. And man, hopefully, he'll get his act together and start going to church. Doesn't that sound ridiculous? But we've believed that. We believe that's the whole purpose. And then die and go to heaven. Sit on a cloud the rest of our life, for an eternity. He had a point to all this. He has a plan. He has a purpose. Every one of you. I don't know what year you was born, but the year you were born. Oh, he was excited. Oh man, I'm going to do everything I can to undo everything that the world does to them, and I'm going to teach them and show them, and I'm going to do all I can to get my goodness to them, and I'm going to send some silly cowboy that doesn't care what people think about him, that he's going to tell them the truth, and hopefully I'm going to have the opportunity to grow them up into whatever it is that I dreamed for them, and they'll become what it is that I want them to be. They'll have a purpose and a life worth living, and I never did read my scripture. Listen to this. This is Ephesians 1. I've prayed this prayer for us years and years, but I found this one part, and in the Passion translation, right? The Passion, I like that. It's not a word for word. It's not a word by word translation. It's more of like the the thought of it, the idea of it, translation. So here's what, Ephesians 1:19. Paul's actually praying for the Ephesians. He's saying, I've heard of your faith and all this. I pray for you every day, and this is what I pray. This is what he says. I pray that you will continually experience the immeasurable. Continually, he said. Not just one time, Miss Sherry. Continually. It's not just it's not a one-night stand. I pray that you will continually experience the immeasurable greatness. I pray that you will continually, I may just read this over and over. I pray that you will continually experience the immeasurable greatness of God's power made available to you through faith. Then your lives will be, everybody say then. Then your lives will be an advertisement. I like that. Then your lives will be an advertisement of this immense power as it works through you. This is the mighty power that was released when God raised Christ from the dead and exalted Him to the place of highest honor.